Watch Jefferson climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come
Is up, Jabroni JJ back here with Coop, talking a little NASCAR, Firekeepers Casino 400. Coop, we got 200 laps up for grabs. We got rain in the mix. But before that, let's briefly talk a bit on last week. Correct me if I'm wrong, place differential guys, some of them caused some havoc yet again in a given race. But that's almost predictable at this point. But it was nice to see you guys did really well. I know you and my guy Keg, rocking the sports Keg gear, did really well on the track last week. So talk a little bit about that before we head into the Firekeepers.
Yeah, DFS wise, didn't have any Bubba Wallace or Brett Keselowski, so that put a damper on things there. Those were the two biggest misses by far. So. But yeah, the betting side was great. We hit Busher. You dream about hitting like an 80-1, 90-1, 101, 201 like one time, but like the books were just so messed up that like we had people hit Busher at 80-1, 50-1, 30-1. Like you dream like to get that number once, and then you're getting it twice on the same driver. But that was great. And then we protected ourselves very well too, because at the end of the race we were able to pick up Truex at like 66-1 and Busch at 65-1, in case anything crazy happens. And then we had Hamlin too, not at a great number, but we still had him enough to where when you have an 80-1, you can put a little bit more money into the 8-1. So make sure you come home. But we had ourselves covered extremely well. So, it was just weird. Like, I know the books took a beating last week because, 80-1, and then you have it 50-1, and you left them at 30-1, and like people were just, crushing Busher, all over the place, man.
Yeah, do that rocket ship, right? And it was nice to see you guys be able to bang that. And obviously, you guys do really well. Obviously, Kegger, of course, in terms of just what I guess you could call risk aversion. Like you just kind of know where you have to put money at certain points in the race to make sure that no matter what, you're not going to. I don't say no matter what, but in most cases, you're not going to lose money. You might not win a lot of money, but in most cases, you're not going to lose money. And it's set up nicely with you guys banging, 30-1 and 81.
Yeah. But it was a weird race in general because we hit Amarola like at 50-1 at the beginning of the race. And he was doing well until he had his issue. And then, we hit Priest at like 100-1. Just a lot of long shots last week. And fortunately, one of them paid off.
Yeah, and that's what kind of filled up the top 10, right? A few of those guys. I know Priest was in like 4th, right? Or 5th, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Amarola cracked the top. Just a lot of – and again, those are some – well, Priest really wasn't placed differential. I think he was starting closer to the front. But like
11th or 12th, but still at his price, man, and probably his ownership too. He ended up being a good play.
Yeah, you needed him in your optimals. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So no, good stuff all around there. And obviously, we did speak on some of those guys too. So it was nice for that to get home. Otter, what's going on? Yeah, poor Holden's just in a major slump right now, and I think the slump has become so big, Otter, that like you have to start to go back to see if he's just always been in a slump, right? Like where maybe he's not in a slump, maybe this is just a pattern of the output we get from Seth, right? So just kind of need to make sure we put things into the proper brackets in relation to Holden. And look, Coop's a nice guy. He doesn't like us ragging on poor Seth, but Seth deserves it in every way, and he's going to give it back to all of us. And Coop, fortunate for you, you're not thrown in those Holden fires yet, but once you will, you'll.
Did he talk about how many days until football?
He did mention it. He's got that calendar that he's scratching off every day, one by one.
It's all on his kitchen, isn't it?
It's kind of sad. It's very sad. I think he has one of those calendars in every room. I think he wakes up and just
he probably wakes up and goes to the kitchen or the refrigerator before he goes to the bathroom in the morning.
Yeah. Yep. One day closer to NFL. What's up, Maddie, Yeezy, Phila, Randy, Jake? Yeah, let's Coop. Without further ado, let's just dive right into this bad boy. We'll go through the dominators as we often do with Coop's playbook. We start with dominators, then we go on place differential, the middle tier folks, the folks that have the opportunity to win the race from the middle, and then the value guys, and then obviously the folks Coop fades. If you don't want to listen to this entire show, you can get all this content at runpuresports.com, 23% off any package, all packages, code NFL23. Again, we'll get you 23% off for life on any and all packages. So head over to Run Pure Sports. You'll be able to get Coop's entire playbook today. We'll talk through most of it. But again, you will be able to get all that data. And obviously, if you like to leverage Sabre, you'll be able to leverage, the driver's Coop's likes into your projections. So all in all, good stuff on that front. But Coop, let's dive right into to who you like here from a dominator perspective. We have 200 laps, which is so good, right? It's not great. It's not terrible. The dirt tracks have a lot less. The road tracks have a lot less. So there are enough to go around, but not enough where you want to load up on dominators. But you're going to have to get the dominators you choose correct today, undoubted, if you want at least cash money. Obviously, if you want to win, you got to get the best dominators. But if you want to cash money today, you got to get the dominator correct, or dominators correct. Who do you like from a dominator perspective, Coop? And what's maximum we go in here? One or two dominators in every lineup.
I mean, if you look at this race in the past, when Kevin Harvick was winning it, he won it as a one dominator. I don't think that's the way to play today. I don't think there's one car out there that is heads above the others from what we saw, yesterday during the practice. We have a bunch of cars that are very close to each other on speed. And clean air means a lot at this track. It's very hard to pass the leader. You can make passes throughout the field, especially if you have a good car. So that's not as much of a concern. But passing the leader is a difficult task. So, we could see some drivers get out there and lead 20, 30, 40 laps in a row. One thing else, we have a competition caution at lap 20. So I don't know how that's going to play out because they don't need gas in the first stage in order to complete it because it's only 45 laps. Tires mean nothing here. You'll see cars come down and get 0 tires or 2 tires quite often. If you're going to go the 4-tire route, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose some track position to others. Because they're going to take those 0 and 2 tires. So the other thing is how many dominators do you play? There's only 200 laps, and if you look at this, like last year, it was pretty much evenly spread out between 3 or 4 drivers. And then there's also been races here too where you have 2 dominators. And, then you have 4 or 5 cars lead 10 to 20 laps and, get some important bonus points for themselves. I'm not going to go the 1 dominator route. Most of my lineups will be with the 2 dominator route, and then I'll have some with the 3 dominator route. So that's the way I'm going to go. Now, it's very difficult. Like I said, these cars are very close to each other in speed. You have some tough decisions to make at the top of the board. I'm going to take Christopher Bell. He was fast here last year. He's been fast here recently. His pit team has been, a disaster for him, and he's made a couple bad mistakes too. But the car has not been of fault. So I think he's going to do well. Ross Chastain is the one, I'll can't fade him. He did show very good speed. He could get the lead early. I don't know if he has a top car to compete with unless he's out there. I think if he falls to 3rd, 4th, 5th, he's going to have a hard time getting back up to that lead. Busher for me is going to be a fade. Pretty much all the Fords up front, Logano and Blaney too, are going to be fades. I've seen this trick from Ford before where in this package they go out and they qualify well. But when it comes time to race, they struggle. The car just doesn't, handle well. It doesn't do well in the dirty air. They get back in the mid-packs, and it's hard for them to get back up front. So those guys are starting too far forward for me. Ty Gibbs is up front too. Very good price. He has a very fast car. Ty has done his best this year on 1.5 2-mile tracks where we have speed. So I think he's in play too. And then I think maybe the cars that are the best, maybe William Byron starting 7th, Kyle Busch starting 8th. Those are the other two I'm going to go with up top. But Busch has done very well in this package. Willie B just has speed every single week, man. So it's a tough. I don't think you can play a lot of drivers over 10K because of their price, and there's not a lot of bonus points available from the Dominators. So I'm going to stick with those 5 of Bell, Chastain, Byron, Gibbs, and Busch. And the other reason I'm sticking with those 5 is minus Bell. The other 4 have very good pit teams, which I think could come into play today because you're probably going to see a green flag stop at some point in stage 2 or stage 3. And, I think, they're going to be important because they can gain a second or 2 upon their competition. Martin Truex is the tough fade for me. He's going to be very popular, and it's just the price for me. And I think he's going to be good today. But if he doesn't get the Dominator points, from a DFS perspective, he's not going to help you very much.
I'll be honest. So a few things. That competition caution is interesting. To me, it does impact the way you build lineups. Number 2, of course, the rain, which could be a big factor to begin with.
Right. Maybe they're only racing the halfway. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. This race might not race till Tuesday because the weather is not good tomorrow either. It just depends, what weather app you get on and who you listen to and so on and so forth. Because, some say there's windows, some say there's not. It's all over the place. So.
Yeah, so I think obviously the weather's a huge factor in terms of the added variance. To me, man, Chris Bell just has not been good. I don't think he's been in an optimal since April. He's priced okay, but the competition caution does scare me because it wouldn't be crazy that he would be okay to lose track position if needed early. And to me, if he loses track position, he becomes unplayable because you basically need him to find his way back to the front to lead laps because you're going to lose all the place differential. Are you that high on Bell because you think he just could go, I don't want to say wire to wire, but not go in for that first caution, kind of lead the entire stage, which is really what you need him to do. And then just kind of cruise control from there, stay inside the top 5, have all those laps led at his price. Is that kind of your take on Bell today?
Yeah, he could lose the lead in turn number 1. Like I said, all these guys up front are risky. And, the majority of my ownership from those top 5 is going to be on Byron and Busch. But I don't think you can fade, a Bell. I was thinking about it, so the competition caution's lap 20. I think I don't think if the cars pit and then they stay out at the end of the stage, if they could make it one more stop in stage 2, I think they would have to still stop twice. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. That competition caution will shake up the field.
Yeah, because
it just depends who takes advantage of it and who pits, and we'll see.
And you bring up a good point there, right? There's definitely going to be some drivers that might take that chance, use that lap 20 for the competition caution, and then just kind of hope you get a few extra cautions in between so that you can take the foot off the gas so that you only have to stop one time in that second stage versus the folks that will have to stop 2. So I think you're going to see a bunch of strategies there intermingle. And look, you just kind of hope that one of those, if you're playing Chris Bell, you just kind of hope that one of those strategies isn't Chris Bell's strategy. Because if he gets off that lead lap, not lead lap, but if he gets off the pole, he just becomes just somebody that offers no value at his price anymore. So it is interesting to take on Bell. I agree with you, though. 1, max 2 Dominators. You just got to get them right. Don't be mixing and matching with these dudes inside the top 10. There are some – oh, go ahead, Coop.
I think you could play 3 of them and have Byron and Busch be the third one. And maybe if they get some fastest laps some way, somehow, because if we see a halfway rain shortened race, it's going to be hard for the guys in the back to obviously make up, a lot of positions. And, it could become where they don't become as much of a factor. And then we have drivers who just have good finishes do well. So, that's why I don't mind like three of them.
And something's got to give, right? Like to me, Buscher's unplayable today. I know that he was great last week, unplayable in my eyes from the front or near the front.
Yep.
And then like guys like Ty Gibbs, Chastain, Chris Bell, even Kyle Busch, who I know is coming from eighth, like these guys just rarely find themselves in optimals. I mean, Kyle Busch, yes, had a little streak a few weeks back where he had, I think, 2 or 3 really good races, including a win when he started on the pole. But it is interesting this race because you just have a chunk of guys at the front that really just haven't really raced a full complete race really well in quite some time. So interesting to see how that kind of plays its way out. But no, good stuff.
I think it's hard because I find it hard to believe that all three of Bell, Chastain, and Gibbs would struggle. I think that's why you gotta, have a little bit of. I'm gonna have a little bit of all of them, but I can see definitely one of them doing well. Which one, I don't know, but for all three of them to struggle, I think is asking a lot.
Yeah, I think, and to your point, right, it is a bit apples and oranges, right? The point I'm referencing in terms of, how they haven't really been peak performers the last month or two, but they also haven't been in this situation the last month or two, where all three of them are forward at the front. So
Right.
yeah, it could be one of those bend, finally breaking kind of things for either of these
And
drivers.
the prices are pretty good on all three of them. I mean, I think you're in the 9Ks on the other two. So
No, fair enough. So let's move over to place differential every week. Where the chalk goes is place differential. Guys on this list, and Coop, I'm looking at some of these guys as well, just always are going to see ownership in these positions. What I find interesting about this slate is you really don't have your stud driver in the back today.
no, you don't.
Sometimes it seems like every week we get like one, maybe 2 stud drivers outside the top 25. That is not the case today. Today, you're really looking for studs inside the 20-ish area. So walk me through place differential. Who makes the most sense?
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Like if you look at this race historically, the cream rises to the top, and the big name drivers / big name teams dominate this race. If you look at the last 4 races, I could count on one hand, not even need that one hand. The number of mid-tier teams / name drivers who have finished in the top 10. It doesn't happen that often. So, it's tough. And, not going to see somebody drive from like 28th to, 10th or something like that. Alex Bowman is the top of my chart. He showed really good speed. He was good a couple weeks ago at Pocono. And while the tracks are different in Pocono and Michigan, they both require, speed, and they both require power. And he showed that. So, he's going to be a popular play. Ricky Stenhouse is back there too. He's done very good in this package. I think, a top 15 would be exceptional for Stenhouse. If you want to get risky, Eric Jones would be the pivot off of Stenhouse, and hope that Jones has some speed. He's no more than a GPP flyer. And then, the elephant in the room is what do you do with Kevin Harvick? He didn't do well in practice and qualifying, which doesn't concern me as much as what it would for another driver, because practice and qualifying, is not Kevin Harvick's forte. We've seen him go out here several times and, not do good and then come to the race and have a very good car. So starts 22nd, and, he's going to be popular. I probably want to be around the field average, maybe slightly below. I think he's definitely got top 10 upside. Top 5, we'll have to wait and see. But, he's going to be popular. Just mix and match him. And it's also probably going to take some ownership away from some of the other 10K drivers that are up there too. But, don't mind Harvick one bit at all.
And so I'm going to talk briefly on Eric Jones, who's, dare I say, Coop, kind of found himself last few weeks. I know that last week was a bit of a letdown for sure, but 3 straight weeks where I'd argue, I don't have the optimal numbers in front of me, but based on his price and where he finished, he could have been in the optimal 3 straight weeks. I don't know if he landed in the optimal 3 straight weeks, but undoubted, he did not lose you money 3 straight weeks with what you paid for him and what he ended up with. So consider me a fan of Eric Jones, who it seems like is owned every week. And I don't know if it's that people just like to click his button. He's just always priced cheap. He's priced up a little bit this week, which actually, when I say a little bit, it's actually the highest he's been priced since March, if I'm correct. So maybe that's going to skid some people away from him. But, the peripherals on him look very similar. I mean, arguably look a little better than Stenhouse. And when you look at ownership projections, like, people are going to want to play guys like McDowell for cheaper. They're going to want to play, JJ Yelly is going to see solid ownership at his price. We'll talk on these guys later. But I definitely think there's nothing wrong with going Jones this week, especially at a more higher volume than maybe you're used to. Not you specifically, Coop, but anybody watching. Because looking at a projection of about maybe 17, 18%-ish, and I'd argue just based on the slate as a whole, I think he's a better play than the ownership he's going to see. So consider me a fan there. And yes, people are going to play Allmendinger for sure. Again, in that cheaper price range, similar upside. But I look at Allmendinger, and Allmendinger's got worse equity to win this race, and more people are going to play him. So, and what's his name? And Jones starts from, is it one position higher than him or one position lower? Yeah, so one position back too. So yeah, I really like Jones today, so I love that call. The problem is for whatever reason, everybody, Eric Jones sees ownership every week. Stenhouse is tough for me to get behind on that end. And Kevin Harvick's an interesting one, right? Starting from 22nd, as far as win equity goes, he's about 16-1, definitely up there from where he's starting from. It definitely could make a ton of sense. I don't love the price for Harvick. I think we've discussed this before, Coop, where I'm okay to play Harvick when he's in those high 8s, low 9Ks. When he's priced over 10K, it just feels like you're hitting your price ceiling with this guy. Yeah. Just talk a little more on Harvick and how you're approaching. I know you talked briefly on him already, but how you're approaching the price climb with him and how much ownership you're really going to have him today.
The other piece with Harvick is, he tends to do much better on the tire wear tracks than the pure speed tracks. And, we're obviously at the pure speed. Now, again, he has several wins here, but that car is not what it was when he won here. So, I think top 5 would be a stretch, somewhere in the 6th to 10th range. But, he could play some strategy and, some way somehow get up there. Him and Brian Blaney have been the 2 Fords that have actually showed speed in this package. But, I probably am going to be 35 to 40% on him, which I think is what he'll come in. And the higher ones, I would imagine he's 65 to 70% on.
Now, before we head over to the middle tier, I do want to touch. Oh, you're going to touch him on this piece. I was going to say, because we've gone through this show so far, and the infamous Kyle Larson has not even been brought up yet. A decent favorite in the race, has decent place differential, has decent win equity, is going to be what looks to be the 3rd or 4th highest owned driver on the slate. Walk us through this middle tier section and what you're going to do with Kyle Larson, a guy that will restrict you to be able to play some top-notch place differential guys or maybe a top-notch dominator with him without kind of having issues figuring out the rest. Larson's a pretty big sticking point because he's the highest priced driver on this slate, arguably has the most upside, especially if he can get his way to the front quick. What are you doing with Larson today, Coop?
Yeah, so you got to make stands, and I'm not going to play Kyle Larson. He needs the Dominator points, even though he's starting 17th. He's the highest priced driver out there. I do like him more on FanDuel than what I do on DK. And then back to Kevin Harvick, I like him more on FanDuel too than what I do on DK. But, Larson just didn't have it in practice. And when we've seen him at his best is when his car has been really good in the practice and the qualifying. That's not to say that, they're not going to make adjustments. But the one piece to this race also is you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to make those adjustments because you're only going to be pitting 3 times. 4 times, if you have to pit 4 times, you probably, have some issues and are going to struggle. So they're not going to have a huge amount of opportunity to make those adjustments that are needed. So, I very well, could see Kyle Larson finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, having a good day, solid day, but it's not going to pay you out for DFS. And along that same lines is Denny Hamlin. He struggled here yesterday too. And, he's $100 cheaper, starting farther ahead. He needs even more Dominator points than what a Larson would. So I think both of them are going to see, some ownership, especially Kyle. And I'm just going to take a stand and stay away from him.
And on the middle tier end, walk us through who else you like here. And I do want to bring up a driver. I know you briefly touched on him before, but Brad Keselowski today just looks like an incredible play. Like, you talk about the peripherals he has to win, the opportunity to lead laps. He grew some confidence last week with leading a ton of laps in that race last Sunday. And then he's just got, again, just overall really good peripherals. The guy is only plus 160 to T5. I'd argue at his price, if he T5s alone without even leading laps, he could find his way into the optimal. Talk a little bit on Keselowski, why you like him or why you don't, and then walk us through these other middle tier drivers that are on your mind.
Yeah, Keselowski's another driver I'm going to take a stand on and be a fade. I can't blame you for playing him, just like Larson and Hamlin. But this package has not been his best by any means. Now, we are in Ford's backyard, so who knows? Maybe they find something. But, starting 12th, I don't think he has that top 5, upside this week. He's probably going to finish right around where he starts. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he carries more downside than what he does, upside. So therefore, I'm going to stay away from Keselowski. The favorite driver in this range would probably be Tyler Reddick, and he's going to be popular. 9,200 fair price. He's been fast every week. He's just somehow finds some issues, or the issues find him. And the results aren't as good as how fast the car has been. I think he has top 5 upside at his price, maybe possibly outside Dominator upside. But, I'm going to stick with Tyler Reddick in this range. And then 2 low GPP darts would be Austin Dillon and Daniel Suarez starting 14th and 16th. I don't think they're going to be very highly owned whatsoever. But they have a very fair price. And they don't need to accomplish much in order to hit value. So I'm going to, sprinkle them into my lineups and take some shots on them. Obviously, they have downside, but both of them being in a Chevy, I think, over a Ford is an advantage for them too.
No, I love it. And obviously, a lot of good stuff overall there. And folks, look, like the video. There's 120 of you watching. The likes just aren't on par. Obviously, Coop's out here giving you good content. I'm not giving you good content. LOL. But I am trying to move the show along, so give me some credit there as well. By just liking the video, you don't even have the option to dislike the video. So to me, if you're not liking the video and you're watching, to me, you're disliking the video. And why are you here? I kid. But ultimately, obviously, we're out here on a Sunday talking some NASCAR, talking a big race at Michigan Speedway. So the least you could do is like the video. And look, folks, poke some questions in as well. I haven't seen a whole lot of questions. I know Brady asked about Keselowski or Bowman's chances to win. To me, like I said, pound for pound, Keselowski is a great play in DFS. And as far as his win equity, I don't love the fact that it's only 13-1. I like him more on the DFS end because his win equity is so low. But as far as do I think he wins? I think it's a dart. And then Bowman, Coop, I know you like Bowman from Place Differential. He very well might be the highest owned driver on the slate.
Yep.
To win the race, are you for Bowman there?
I'm sure he could win it, but I don't think he's one of the, top 10 contenders. I'd say he's right around 10th to maybe 12th or 13th. But anything can happen. But back to that point, like if you're looking for a pivot off of Bowman, Keselowski would be your man, because if Bowman finishes 15th, 16th, 17th, and Brad finishes 8th or 9th, you're going to pass the field quite a bit, just strictly upon the ownership aspect, because Brad's not going to be near the ownership of what Bowman is.
So we haven't talked on, and Smokestack brings up Bubba Wallace. We haven't talked on Wallace. I'm always overweight on Wallace and Bubba Wallace, it seems. This week I find it tough personally to get there, Coop. The win equity is not great for where he's starting from. He doesn't offer a whole lot of place differential today. I don't know. I like playing Bubba Wallace when he's starting from this position, when he's like in the high 7s. The fact that he's in the high 8s and a guy that just really can't close a race. And also a guy that just really is rarely in the optimal. Like last week, he races pretty well, leads a ton of laps, and I still don't think he made the optimal. Like he led 80 laps last week, and I still don't think made the optimal. So it's just these types of things are just, it's tough. And I look at him all season long. The sad news is I don't know if Bubba Wallace has been in an optimal once all season, Coop. I mean, you can make it the argument on that 1-400 race. I think it was a month and a half ago, but he's just been tough to finish. And if you watch the races, you're like, wow, this guy's actually doing well. And then randomly something always seems to happen. Any love at all for Bubba Wallace today?
Especially pre-race, I had
a
lot of ownership or a lot of love for him. He disappointed in practice and qualifying yesterday. Didn't show top-notch 10-lap or 5-lap speed. They interviewed him afterwards. He didn't seem, really happy with the car. But I would rather play Reddick over Bubba this week. The thing, that hurt me with Bubba is if he was 8K versus 8.8K, I might be willing to take a little bit of chances on him. But, he got that price bump, and, that price bump plus what I saw yesterday is going to take me away from him.
Got it. And Jake, just so you know, we did go over briefly Ty Gibbs. I know Coop was okay to play him. Wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, if that matters, just because this is another guy that just does not find himself in the optimal ever. I know he's a good young driver, but outside of the All-Star race, I don't think this dude's been in an optimal, and you're not paying a cheap price for him, and you really need him to finish where he's starting. His win equity is okay. It's not great for where he's starting. I think a lot of factors make it tough for me to play him just based on where his ownership's going to be and the rest of it. But look, he's always a sneaky driver, to your point, and he's usually towards the front of the pack regardless. He's just another one similar to Bubba Wallace where something weird seems to happen in every one of his races. I saw a few weeks ago where he just darted to the front when he was starting from the back as a pretty chalky play. And then after the first stage, just went nowhere. It's just super strange. But again, another guy that's racing really well when you watch him, and then just randomly weird things happen. Quick shout out to obviously, thank you, Chris Brady and Yeezy and Jace. Always appreciate you guys. And Gavin throwing shade here. A hair and makeup person deserves a raise. It's hard to fathom whether Gavin's just being facetious here, Coop, or if he really loves what's going on with your background, with the lighting. You would know more than that based on Gavin's personality. I would presume it's sarcasm, but
he spent a lot of time underneath the bridge here recently, man. So he's kind of struggling himself, man.
Yeah, I could see that. So yeah, Gavin does strike me as somebody that's living between alleyways. So keep up the good work. Keep up the good work there, Gavin. And yeah, ultimately, if Gavin, if it's that important to you, how about you hire an airbrush artist to just kind of fire up Coop before this 1 p.m. show every Sunday? I actually like that idea. Maybe you can do a 2-for-1. You can go to Coop's house. You guys can both jump on this show.
Yeah. I mean, Gavin lives that luxury lifestyle, man. Out there on the West Coast, lives right off of the Pacific Ocean, and is $2.5 million condo. So
I believe that.
But he spends a lot of time underneath that bridge out there in Santa Monica.
Fair enough. And obviously, all jokes all aside, Gavin, always appreciate you being around. Smokestack, as far as best chance for top 10 multiple cars, Chevy probably makes the most sense, but Coop, I'll let you answer that as well.
Top 10 multiple car. What was it again?
What team? Oh, what? So I was thinking manufacturer, but Smokestack's asking what team best chance to be in the top 10 with multiple cars.
Probably Gibbs or Hendrick. I mean, they each have 4 cars. Stuart Haas doesn't have a chance. So yeah, Gibbs and Hendrick.
Fair enough. Let's head over to one of the last sections here, the Value Town drivers coop. Who do you like here for value? Allmendinger is going to be pretty chalky as I look through some of these numbers at the lower level. But even a guy like Josh Bilicki and I think JJ Yelly, like these guys are going to see just like stupid ownership for today, and not stupid that like it's like 50, but like stupid for like these drivers. So let me ask you this, Coop. Is this a race that just doesn't have a whole lot of attrition? Because what would be driving projections for Bilicki and Yelly to be this high owned? Because guys like them, obviously, occasionally they'll see ownership because of how cheap they are. But both of them are going to be sub 20% owned, it looks like today. So what says you on that situation? And then walk us through Allmendinger and the rest of the value guys.
Overall, it's a low attrition race. But occasionally, Michigan does have a big wreck here and there. So I don't know what would be driving their ownership because, it's completely attrition driven because they're going to be 2 to 3 to 4 seconds behind on each lap. They just lack the speed in general. So, that's the only thing I can think of is, being able to get more of like a Larson Harvick lineup in, more of a Hamlin, Larson, Hamlin, Harvick type of lineup in, and play both of them because you're going to have to dip down into those really low cheapo drivers if you want 2 of those 3 drivers in your lineup.
Completely understood. And then as far as some of the other drivers in your list, you got a pretty robust list here of guys you like for value.
Like one of the things from a lineup construction, I think if you avoid the 10K drivers, you really don't have to double punt this week. If you go into that 10K range with 1 and definitely 2 drivers, you're going to be double punting. Because again, these drivers who are starting in the back, they don't have a lot of upside when it comes to finishing position. Unless some crazy strategy type of play happens. And a top 15 would be great for them. Top 10, like the reason I like AJ Allmendinger so much is he has a fast car compared to the drivers that are priced around him. And I think he's the one that has the top 10 upside from back there. And he's really the only one that has top 10 upside from back there. So that's really why I, kind of go to him quite often this week. And he has shown good speed in this package too. So, I'm going to eat the AJ chalk. After that, I'm just going to be, throwing drivers here and there around. And I like Haley. He's a teammate of Austin, of AJ. And then LaJoy was very fast yesterday until he spun out. Came back through, did a qualifying lap, wasn't the greatest. I'm sure they've done some more work on that car. But I do like Corey LaJoy quite a bit too. But he's going to be a little risky because, if they didn't fix that car, damage on the car could hurt. And then after that, you're just, throwing, darts at different drivers. McDowell and Cindric, I don't mind because they're going to be lower ownership. I think one driver that could get ownership that I'm not really high on is going to be Josh Berry. He's filling in for Noah Gragson. He hasn't been the greatest when he goes to filling in, and I mean, he didn't get much, time to get into this car whatsoever this week. And I think he's just going to be there to be loading laps. Plus, the car hasn't been fast whatsoever. I like Austin Hill over him, although I'm not like really, really high on Austin Hill. So again, it's just throwing some darts down here after Haley and Allmendinger, and LaJoy would be my top 3.
Yeah, so a lot of good content there to sift through overall. First, I'll start with Gavin. Anything looks better if you had to stare at Kegel Saturday? Yes, that's a take. Hendricks, thanks for answering that easy. I think a Coop was definitely on par there. Out of Berry, McDowell, Haley, Coop, for me, it feels like super easy McDowell. Obviously, price matters, though. I'm not sure how much money you got on the table there, Yeezy. I'll be honest, I don't even think they're in the same brackets. Like, I think Berry, Haley are in similar brackets, and McDowell's in his own. Coop, what do you think about those three in particular, if you had to pick one?
Barry, Haley, and McDowell?
Yeah.
Not Barry. And if you have a chalkier lineup, I would definitely take McDowell because I don't think he's going to get a lot of ownership in his 23rd starting position.
Yeah, it looks like McDowell's looking to see about maybe 17-ish.
Yeah. Which isn't bad.
And who was it? Haley was the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Haley, I'll be honest, like it looks like Haley's going to see like no ownership today. So
Then
I mean, great.
Haley.
He'll see like maybe 7 to 8%, but McDowell should be more than him. That's really just because they're priced very similar, Coop. But McDowell's just got much better win equity.
And I mean, like this isn't a track where you're worried about them losing laps either. You know,
yeah.
Obviously, maybe the guys, you know, like Balicki and Yaley and them, they could lose a lap. But you know, like a McDowell or a Haley, you know, I'm not really concerned about them losing a lap. If they lose a lap, they got bigger problems.
And as for before we go to the fades, Coop, Chastain. So we briefly touched on him. I know Jake's asking, saying nobody's really talking about him. I'll be honest, like he's starting from the front, so it's hard to kind of say what his ownership's going to be. It seems like these guys at the front, what they're projected at, it doesn't always seem to come to fruition. But Chastain, I think, is really tough to play just because he hasn't had a great year overall. He's starting from second, so you need him to kind of boost to the front in the beginning. It's only 14-1 to win, which are half the odds of Chris Bell. It's not like he's priced great either. I mean, he's 9K, which isn't terrible, but it's also far from great for the situation. Just want to touch on Chastain briefly, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I go back to Nashville. Was the last time he had a very good car in practice and qualifying. And he has, you know, a really good car, you know, based upon what he showed, you know, yesterday. And he ran well at Nashville and ended up winning. So, you know, he's been up and down in his speed, you know, every other week, basically. And, you know, that kind of trend, you know, of seeing that is what's going to keep me on playing some Ross Chastain.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Coop, let's talk on your fades, and then we'll get these folks out of here because I know.
Yeah, we've covered most of them. Can't blame you. Like again, playing Martin Truex, Buescher. I'm not going to play Logano. Blaney. I'm not going to play. Another guy we haven't talked on is Chase Elliott. You know, I could see where he comes in and you know, surprises people. But if you look at over the last year and a half, this package hasn't been the best for him. You know, we don't need to go into his season. It's been a disaster for him. But, you know, he has been getting a little bit, you know, better finishes here recently. So, again, he could be a surprise. But, again, Chase usually gets, you know, ownership just because of his name. Bubba we hit on, Keselowski. 3 we didn't hit on, Amarola, Briscoe, and Priest. They've been horrible in this package. They've been so slow. And, you know, they're starting a little bit too far forward for me. Todd Gilliland, another driver, you know, that has had a pretty good season. And he's been a, you know, solid value play throughout the year. But when you look at his results, this package has not been his ticket. So I'll be staying off of him. And then I'm not playing any of the Custer, Dillon, Yaley, Blickies.
This is interesting. The 3 guys you mentioned right in tandem there. It looks like they're going to all go relatively unowned. When I say unowned, they're all going to be
so slow.
They're all going to be less than 10%.
Yeah.
And Andrew, I wonder what Chastain's numbers are when he qualifies up front. It just feels like all season he hasn't been great. And I'll be honest, like last season with Chastain, and we talked on him every week, Coop, back then, like, God, it felt like such a lucky season. Like consistently being aggressive and consistently avoiding every accident that he causes. So just an interesting, like that Chastain, like this year compared to last, like I don't look at this year as the anomaly. I look at last year as the anomaly. Very aggressive driver that was paying was paying the price a bit earlier in the year. Last year didn't pay the price at all. I can't tell you what his numbers are when he qualifies up front versus from the back, but this year in general, he's just been mid at best every race. Just nothing to love about what we've seen from him.
I think a lot of that has to do with it. When he's aggressive, he's very good, but when he's passive, he struggles.
Yeah, it's definitely been a different driver for sure, and obviously he's been rubbing people the wrong way, so maybe that's been part of the reason why he's been being more passive. But either way, another good one, Coop. A lot of good content as always. Look, guys, this race starts in less than an hour, so we'll try to get this over with the next 2 minutes, so you guys can go back to building lineups. Obviously, if you're already a Run Pure Sports member, great. You have all the things you need all the tools you need to build the proper lineups. If you are not a DFS or Bets member, 23% off for life, any all packages, code NFL23. And you can like the video on your way out. It's not hard, right? It's Sunday. We're all here together. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. And even Mitch makes an appearance late. Dwayne, Jake, Andrew, Izzy, Paul, even Crick TV sliding in. Yeezy, as always. Gavin, Brady. So love you guys. Smokestack, Otter, the whole bit. Always appreciate you guys showing up here every Sunday. And look, as always, folks, gamble responsibly. Stay safe. Yes, run pure. We'll see you guys next week. Good luck.